Hey y'all, it's me, your favorite pimp, Ty. So we are back. We've been on a little hiatus, but today we're going to speak to the fabulous and wonderful Miss Elizabeth Bethune. So let's get into it, y'all. All right. Hey Elizabeth.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you for being here today.
Absolutely appreciate you having me.
So, Miss Elizabeth, she is actually a HRIS business development consultant, y'all. She has spent over 20 years leading HRIS innovation projects. She is just the bomb when it comes to both the technical side and the functional side. So I am definitely excited to have you here and to talk with you today about metamorphosis, right? Leading and staying innovative through difficulty and change.
Absolutely.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, as you've given me the wonderful introduction, I'm Elizabeth Bethune. I've been working in HRS and consulting business development now for about 20 years, a very long career, starting off as actually a payroll consultant and developing skills from every trick and turn I could think of. Once I learned payroll, it's like, okay, how is this designed?
Yep.
How do I configure a system? What can I do to learn more? So I work with ADP, I've worked with Ceridian. Let's see, I've also worked with SAP, utilizing those skills to do things as far as implement systems globally. I worked with Chevron for many years on an oil and gas project. So that took me into the land of projects and project management. So from there, I went on to doing consulting with aviation company, helping them develop their products with 3 airlines. From there, I went on to doing systems with the city of Atlanta. I'm recently just leaving the city of Atlanta. I was there for 10 years.
That's a good
Learn,
tenure.
learned quite a bit. It was a wonderful experience. It's a lot different than the private sector. So, really, with the city, to me, it was more learning. I'd say the culture per se versus worrying about my skill set. My skills were already developed, but learning government culture, learning the ins and out on developing relationships, that was priority with government.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much what I've been doing for the last 20 years, just navigating and growing throughout my career. And every step of the way, making sure that I've been innovative, learning new techniques, learning new methodologies, and learning how to excel and develop myself no matter what's placed in front of me.
Yeah. Oh, that's huge. So to remain innovative and to have that, just wanting to have that continual going after knowledge, seeking knowledge.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about how you remain competitive and how you remain innovative outside of, just being, I guess, being curious about technologies and things like that. But how do you remain innovative and keeping up on top of technology as you grow?
Well, let's see. Throughout all of those years, I would say in between, there have been moments where I've had to pause. Like while working initially at ADP, I had not completed my bachelor's degree, so that was a long time ago. But from that experience, I was like doing very well in Atlanta, but I had this desire where I need to complete my degree. It's just like, even though I'm successful, I'm doing well, I'm growing and developing. Let me take a moment. So I decided to relocate back home to Daytona Beach, Florida,
Okay.
and complete my degree from Bethune-Cookman.
Okay.
Once I completed that, that's how I ended up moving to Houston. Ended up working with Chevron.
Okay.
And so then I started thinking, okay, I'm back in payroll. I'm doing very well. So I said, well, working these projects, what else can I do to better enhance my skills? So it's like each step of the way, I'm always feeling like, well, I've learned how to be a project coordinator. Let me think about getting into project management, or do I want to continue in payroll? But I wanted to then learn system design and how systems were implemented. So I said, well, let me go back to Atlanta. And I started working with Ceridian. So from there, I ended up doing implementations for companies throughout. I did that for many years and decided, well, every time I go, I'm sent to an organization. The first thing a company would give me is their HR books. They would give me all of their policies. And I'm like, okay, so I need to learn the policies in order to develop the systems in order for them to stay compliant.
Yeah.
So I said, well, let me go back to school. So I went and got a master's in employment law.
Okay.
And so for me, it's all about bringing everything together. So each step of the way, I like to master that particular craft, whether it be a certification, another degree, whatever it is, even if it's a short course, and just updating my skills to stay relevant, employable, and just I love the thrill of knowledge.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just about what can I do to better enhance what I have to offer. So if I go into any organization, I always can sit with anyone in the company and bring something to the table that will get us to the result that they're asking for.
I like it. So you talked about your bachelor's, you talked about your master's, you also spoke about certification. So which one would you tell the audience you feel is most important? Is it more important to like be in school and spend a little bit more money to get a degree, or maybe just go towards certifications?
Honestly, I feel like depending on where it is you're trying to go and what your goals are, it's really a personal choice.
Okay.
For me, I just well, I'm sure you're aware, my great-grandmother is the founder of Bethune-Cookman. So
I wasn't going to bring it up unless you did.
Education
is in you.
That's not an option. Like there is no option. Education is the forefront of my DNA. So that has to happen. So for me, it's a personal preference, which is why I was adamant about graduating my first degree from Bethune-Cookman.
Gotcha.
Because that is who I am.
Yes.
So for me, that was like set the tone. But for anyone else, I would say go with your gut. You know, everybody can't always afford college. They're not given that privilege or born into it. Even myself, I had to pay to go to school, even though that's my great-grandmother's college. But I made a way to make that happen, even though it took me 10 years later. But I still accomplished the goal.
Yeah.
So it's just about whatever works for you. But I will say it's important either way. You need to have some level of knowledge in order to excel in life.
Yes.
And continuously learn.
Right.
Like, never stop learning.
Stop learning.
Never stop learning.
Yes, I totally agree with that. And I totally agree that a 4-year college is not for everyone. So learning a trade, getting those certifications, I think they are just as important. I'm very much like you. I'm always going after knowledge. Like I can't sleep at night sometimes because I'm like, oh my God, I need to go look this up. I need to find this. But it does not matter if you get a 4-year degree, if you get a 2-year degree. Education is important.
Absolutely.
At the end of every day.
And when I first started school, I promise you, initially after graduating high school and starting college, even though that was what my family's legacy, I was the worst student on the planet, like a complete bum. So it was not for me at that time.
Yeah.
And it was a waste of everybody's time for me to be in school. I probably had a GPA of negative something. So what I'm saying is education is essential. However, it also sometimes you can't just throw someone into a situation or an environment that they're not prepared for because it's an investment.
Yeah.
So a certification might help someone develop their skills, learn how to have some consistencies, and get them to a place where they're able to make a steady income. Like I said, everybody's not always prepared for college, so it helps to understand what your place is and what you're capable of handling at that time.
Yeah. So with the knowledge that you gained, right, and with your great grandmother being who she was and being adamant about knowledge and education, how do you create that feedback loop for other women, for other team members, to also kind of encourage them to do the same for with education?
Well, for me, it's more about understanding that I think about what my great grandmother was able to accomplish just based off a level of faith.
Mm.
And so to this day, she's known globally. She's accomplished worldwide things with $1.25.
Mm.
So it's like, don't ever think that there's something you can't accomplish. And so for me, that's always given me hope where even when I feel like there is no other option, just remember that part of faith in me that knows that, you know what you're doing now might not be what's for you, but keep moving forward
Mm-hmm.
because you'll see where you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so for any woman or any human being, it's just understanding that you have to trust who you are, trust your gut, and understand that that voice in you always keeps you guided.
Okay, I like it. So, let's talk about like mentorship and things like that. How do you maneuver when it comes to mentorship and giving back to the community?
Well, for me, I'm not a very I'm not very outgoing. Most times people are always coming to me. So even though I say I don't do much in the community, for some reason, people seem to flock to me. So I'm always doing something, whether it be helping someone obtain like a job, working on their children's resumes, um, providing resources and tools to help people get their businesses developed.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that I didn't know I had the ability to do, but because people are constantly coming to me for something.
Yeah.
And I just really didn't have an idea that I know I'm knowledgeable, but I'm an introvert. So I just didn't know this was a skill set I had, but I'm very comfortable sharing any knowledge I have. And I think that's helped develop the fact that now I'm an introvert extrovert because I am not shy about making sure things get done, getting problems resolved, and utilizing every resource I have to make sure people are successful.
Yeah. So lessons learned as an introvert, right? And being in business, even working, doing the things that you've done. Because a lot of times with technology, people think that we don't interact with people, but we end up interacting with people a lot.
All the time.
So how do you use those? How do you turn that inside out? That natural thing that you are being introverted. How do you turn that inside out to be able to provide mentorship, to provide that, helping other people out as you go along?
I think it's just having that confidence level of owning and truly being aware of the power of what I know.
Mm-hmm.
I am very comfortable with who I am and the information that I provide to others. So it makes it very easy to have a conversation because I'm clear about what I'm saying. I'm not giving anybody any fluff, and I know what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's just as easy as it can be for me.
Yeah. I agree. And she no fluff at all. Funny though. You super funny, but you don't give no fluff. So in the workplace, what are some strategies? What are some lessons learned as you advocate for women in the workplace? Because I know sometimes it gets hard for us, especially being on the technology side, being in HR. How do you advocate for other women?
I advocate for people, but definitely for women.
Okay.
And mainly I'm forceful and I don't back down. I don't have a fear of titles. I don't have a fear of who's making the most money.
Mm-hmm.
I am strong in my beliefs. And if you are wrong, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And I have no problem having conversation with anyone about that
Yeah.
position. So to fight for others is just in me. I like for people to be treated fairly. I like for people to know their worth and understand that they all have value and what they offer is relevant.
Yeah.
And no one can dismiss that. If everyone walks out of the workplace, nothing will get done. So people have to understand the power that they possess. And so I make sure they understand that.
Yeah. So you said something about not being fearful of people with titles. So what's one piece of advice that you could offer like a newcomer in the workplace and they have to go and talk to like the CEO of the company and they're like just shaking and scared? What would you say to them?
Well, I'll tell you a clean version. So, you're
No,
anybody.
why the clean version?
Well, anyone
We
can
on
be the
YouTube.
CEO. Anybody is a CEO.
Okay.
It's just some letters.
Okay.
So I remember I was I interviewed a young lady that she's still now working with the city of Atlanta, and she came on board, and she her background was in payroll. She hadn't gone to college, but she was like, "Oh, I pass by this building all the time, and I just thought, I'll never be able to work here. I don't have a degree. Everybody has all these letters behind their name." And I said, all these ABCs and 1, 2, 3s don't mean a thing. We can put some letters behind your name. These are just a bunch of regular people.
Right.
And at any given moment, you can have the same title. Just understand your work means something and who you are, your knowledge. I said, continue to learn, develop your skills, and don't ever be intimidated because just like you walked into this building looking for a job, the same situation occurred with them.
Yeah. And I think I keep hearing the same thing come from you, like it's underlying the knowledge, not being afraid to learn. Like even if it's not a degree, but just going after
Absolutely.
the knowledge. Yeah. Okay.
And never be intimidated by what someone feels that you're lacking. Because, titles can be given to anyone, especially in different types of organizations. You can write a personnel paper and create a bunch of fancy titles for a bunch of clowns.
Yeah.
So, it's still the circus.
Okay. I love it. You are hilarious to me. So coming from public sector, right? I know sometimes it gets hard. You said that you have to integrate with the culture, and that is true. How did you use emotional intelligence to integrate yourself seamlessly into the culture?
It took a moment.
Okay.
Initially, so for me, going in, it was around, I think I started with the city. That was my first experience working in government. So that was around 2015. So, of course, we were heavily in the office. So it was new. I had been out where I was doing consulting prior to, so I wasn't in the office on a regular basis. So just that process alone was a major transition because I was like, what do you mean you all come to work every day? Like, who's doing that? But so I helped implement their first telework program from the HR department because they didn't have telework prior to, which actually came in handy because we went through a cyber attack. And fortunately, my team, they didn't have their computers on the network, so we were still able to successfully do payroll. Then we went through COVID. So all of these things had prepared my team to be able to be innovative.
Okay.
So something that had not been thought of because they were like, these people can't work from home. So it was that kind of mentality where you have to look at someone every day.
Yeah.
You need to walk by their desk because you think they're at lunch for too long. These are human beings.
Right.
Come on. Is the work done?
Right.
That's how you work in this world today.
Right.
So for me, it was a lot of learning the culture, but also being somewhat forceful in putting new ideas into action, not waiting on permission. Like Of course, I got a lot of pushback when it was discovered that I had a telework team because I didn't ask to have one. I
Yeah.
created one.
Okay.
So things like that. But in the end, it all turned out to the city's advantage
Right.
because you have to sometimes be willing to shake things up because it will pay off later.
Mm-hmm. So you kind of like a renegade, is what it is. So,
Renegade of funk.
yeah. So is that what leadership is to you? So what is leadership to you?
Leadership to me is a lot of things.
Okay.
It's building relationships, it's being engaged, having interactional exchanges with human beings,
Okay.
being a person who's willing to be empathetic, a good listener, and just understand that the bottom line is human beings. Leadership entails actually having conversations. It's not always transactional, and it should never be.
Yeah.
You need to be engaged and understand that you're now a servant to others.
Yeah.
Because your objective is for the betterment of an organization, but you need buy-in from the people that you're leading. And
Yes.
so to me it's just about being open enough and vulnerable so that people feel comfortable in pretty much sharing their lives with you because you spend most of your time with them.
This is true. So when it comes to your leadership style, what type of leadership style do you think you possess? Are you like a servant leader? Are you more like laissez-faire, like hands off, authoritarian? Like, what do you think you are?
Pretty much a combination of a servant and hands off.
Okay.
I am available at all times. However, I need people to be trusted and understand the value that they bring is what they were hired to do.
Right.
I am here to make sure you have resources, tools, any assistance I can bring, but I refuse to be anybody's micromanager. I find it to be absurd and obnoxious.
Yeah.
But I will always be there to serve others, to make sure they have the things that they need, and to be a resource to help them develop, to grow into whatever their goals may be within an organization.
Yeah. So you're talking about tools again. And I think a lot of people forget about training.
Oftentimes.
So again, it goes back to the knowledge. So how did you ensure that your teams, whether or not you're consultant or whether or not you working for a company, how do you ensure that your teams have the tools that they need, have the access that they need to train it?
Well, oftentimes, at least in my previous life, the resources weren't always available for the team to have the right tools. But I would always look for outside resources. The thing is, it has to be a mutual exchange. You have to be willing and open to learning. So sometimes you might give everyone a world of information, but if they don't utilize it, I mean, what good is it?
Right.
But for me, it's just about, okay, well, you're not. Sometimes you have to be willing to invest in yourself. So I would have those conversations, like, okay, they're not going to pay for this. However, you can go to this website, you can go to this site or YouTube, and YouTube is very good for a lot of things. But there's nothing wrong with paying for a certification. They have financing. There are all types of options. So just introducing alternative methods to get something to get you ahead or help you learn something that would make you employable elsewhere if you want to try something new.
Right. I like it. I like it a lot. So overall, throughout your career, 2 decades, probably, 2 decades of your career, what is your biggest lesson learned that you can share with everyone?
To always trust myself and never be fearful of decisions that I've made, give myself grace, and just be willing to just stick with what I know to be true, stay ethical. And that always keeps me in the direction I'm supposed to be going in.
Okay. So I like it. I like the ethics. You have to remain ethical.
Ethical and living with integrity. I
Yeah.
like to be able to look at myself every day because I
Oh,
love me some me.
yeah, I know that's right. So, as we get ready to close it on out, when you think about like your dream job,
I don't have one. No, I'm just kidding.
what's a company, like two companies that you've always like wanted to work for, or wanted to work with as a consultant? That's what I'll say.
Actually, I always thought I wanted to work for Apple and was
Mm.
invited to work for Apple. But by the time they made a decision that they were interested in hiring me, I was on my driving back to Atlanta. I had lived in Austin for years and I had been I had interviewed with them, the same person, probably 5 times. I walked in there in my initial interview, suited up, looking, interview ready. And I felt like I walked into the Twilight Zone because, this is a innovative company. So they're very non traditional.
Mm-hmm.
And and the guy that was interviewing me, he's like, "Oh my goodness, what do you have on? You're overdressed." Like, so that was funny all in itself. I saw some man that looked like Cousin It, like his hair was dragging the floor. It was all kinds of things going on there.
Yeah.
And it was in Austin, Texas,
Yeah.
which their motto is keep Austin weird. So after a multitude of interviews, and then the other funny part about Apple, they only had like one Microsoft computer because they couldn't do their payroll on Apple products. And it was in like this bunker. Like they didn't want anybody to know it
I
was
don't
there.
blame them.
It was so funny. But it was too many interviews. And probably after a year, they finally called back. And I was like, I'm headed back to Atlanta. I
Yeah.
appreciate the offer. And they were like, well, is there any way we can change your mind? And I was like, am I turning Apple down? This is so cool. And I said, no. And I just kept driving.
Uh-huh. How did it feel to turn Apple down?
It felt good
Yeah.
because I felt like you didn't know my worth.
Yeah.
Anyway, goodbye.
See, knowing your worth, y'all, is so important. Like I think Beth has said that at least 5 times at this point. To know your worth and maintain your integrity and maintain your ethics. So I love it. Any other companies that you've thought about?
Other than developing my own,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. So when you look at innovation and continuous growth, what's your advice behind that?
Well, obviously, make sure you never stop learning, but continuous growth is just realizing what it is that you feel you want to achieve and never set a limitation on getting it done.
Mm.
Like if you feel like, don't ever feel like something is impossible. Just figure out what route you need to take to get to that. And it may take a little longer. Like
Yeah.
it may take years, but keep your eyes on the prize. I always say, just like with a project, I always focus on the end result. Like
Yeah.
when I had to go back to school, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be at home, like from leaving, making money when I moved back to Florida, I had a job making like $7 an hour and I only worked 20 hours a week. That's how I ended up with natural hair. I couldn't pay to get my hair done, so I had to shave my head. So I just had to focus on, I kept seeing myself walk across that stage
Yeah.
to get my degree. So focus on the end result and you'll wake up and you're living in it.
Yeah. Living the dream. I like it. I think that's the best advice to end on. Thank you, Beth, for being here. I appreciate your time and your effort and your energy. You're always, anytime I call, you come, and I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So that is all we have for today. But the building block of advice I want to always leave you all with is to always track your lessons learned, right? Because they are the building blocks to your success. So we'll see you the next time. Peace.